All right, now the downside of working dynamically here is all of the duplicates are, of course, clones of the original right here, which is to say they're all colored the same. What I want is to color my cubes differently, which is why in this movie we're going to bust up the dynamic effect in order to gain control over the individual cubes. And you'll see, because we've set things up using tints of a global swatch, it's going to make the job a lot easier. All right, so I'm going to switch back to the layers panel, and I'm going to turn off that guides layer because at this point it's just a bunch of visual noise. I'm also going to turn off my smart guides because otherwise we're going to get a bunch of flashing on screen. All right, now I want you to notice over here the cubes layer is twirled open, and we've got this single group. If I were to twirl it open, it contains nothing more than those 3 path outlines that we created a couple of movies ago. Now, we don't want to mess any of this up because we might want to come back to this effect later. So I'm going to go up to the Layers panel flyout menu and choose Duplicate Cubes to create a duplicate of the cubes layer. Then I'll go ahead and twirl the original one closed and turn it off in order to protect it. And now I'll go ahead and double-click in an empty portion of this layer to bring up the Layer Options dialog box. And I'll call this guy Blocks just to indicate that it's now static. And I'll change the color to, let's say, violet, and then click OK. All right, in my case, I'm seeing that bug where we continue to see the old color next to the expanded contents of the layer, but I can fix that just by twirling the layer closed and then back open. All right, now let's gain control over the individual cubes by going up to the Object menu and choosing Expand Appearance. And notice now that we once again have a group, but that group contains a bunch of other groups. So right now we're looking at each one of those plates of 16 cubes. And so to break those up, go up to the Object menu and choose the Ungroup command, or you can press that keyboard shortcut of Control-Shift-G or Command-Shift-G on the Mac. And that does indeed break up the first group, but it leaves us with the interior groups. And so we need to bust them up by pressing Control-Shift-G or Command-Shift-G on the Mac. And now we're seeing each one of the rows. That's good, but we need to dig down farther. So press Control-Shift-G or Command-Shift-G again. And you will see that we now have, if you were to count them, a total of 64 orthogonal cubes. All right, now we need to color them. And so I'm just going to go ahead and twirl close that layer right there so that we can focus our efforts inside the document window. And so I'm going to start things off by clicking off the shapes to deselect them. And then I'll click on this front group right there, and I'll go up to the Object menu and choose Hide Selection. Or, and this is what I'm going to be doing in the future, you can press Control-3 or Command-3 on the Mac. And that's going to expose this first sort of clump of cubes here in the background. And to select them, you need to click and then shift-click with the black arrow tool several times. And you want to get this guy as well right there. So you'll have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cubes selected. At which point, go ahead and click on that first color swatch, the one that represents the fill over here in the far left side of the control panel. And if you have access to my color group, go ahead and click on the Cube 2 swatch. And by virtue of the fact that we're working with tints, all of those different colors survive. At which point I'll press the Escape key in order to hide that panel. And this next step is very important. You want to go up to the Object menu and choose the Group command. And I know there's a certain degree of irony associated with having ungrouped these things so many times and now trying to reassemble groups of groups. But our original groups are totally different than the ones we're looking for. And so go ahead and choose that command, or press Control-G or Command-G on the Mac. And then we want to once again hide that selection by going to the Object menu, choosing Hide, and choosing Selection. Or again, you've got that keyboard shortcut of Control-3 or Command-3 on the Mac. All right, now this is the most tedious step because we have a lot of cubes, and the only way you're going to get them is by clicking and shift-clicking. And that's because there's cubes behind these cubes. After all, this is a faux 3D effect. So I'll click here and then shift-click like so around this edge right here. And then I'm going to have to shift-click on the interior guys as well, as you're seeing me do. And then finally, you got to get this guy right there in the middle. So there's a lot of them. I don't know how many, but there's quite a few of these guys that are now selected. And to make sure you selected the right stuff, go ahead and click on that first color swatch up here in the control panel. And if you're working along with me, select the Cube 3 swatch in order to apply these shades of blue, and then go to the Object menu and choose the Group command, or press Control-G or Command-G on the Mac. You're going to need those groups in the long run. All right, now I'll hide these guys by pressing Control-3 or Command-3 on the Mac, which is that keyboard shortcut for the Hide Selection command. And now I'll just go ahead and marquee everybody that remains, or I could have just pressed Control-A or Command-A on the Mac. And let's go ahead and group them. so we don't forget, by choosing the group command or pressing Control-G, Command-G on the Mac. And then I'll click on this first color swatch and apply the Cube 4 swatch. Again, it's a global swatch, so all of our tints survive. All right, now you can click off the shapes to deselect them, and then to bring everybody back, just go up to the Object menu and choose the Show All command, or press Control-Alt-3 or Command-Option-3 on the Mac, and then I'll once again click off the shapes to deselect them. And that is how you bust up all of your cubes and then assign them colors based on their stacking order, with all the background cubes totally intact, here inside Illustrator.